Hello, everybody. Another episode of Patrick Auguste is hosting show. That means we getting in contact with you in the middle of this COVID-19. I hope that this time that we provide here in the community and abroad is that help in what we're living in, the challenges that we have. And the format is that we welcome in on the show one or two personalities and people doing wonderful thing in life in the area and sometimes in the foreign country. And we're gonna meet today my guest, Josephine Basudde. She's a psychologist therapist, and she's already in the screen with me now. Josephine, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Josephine, you live in Canada for a long time now, but you were born in Africa, and I think in Uganda. Tell me a little bit about your life before you came to Canada.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me, Patrick. I am glad to be here. I'm happy to be here. I was born and raised in Uganda, in Kampala. I was born in Kampala, and I lived there with my parents and my siblings. I grew up in a very interesting home where there were so many people. We lived communally, and while we were I lived there until I was about 13 years old, and unfortunately, the war broke out, and the Idi Amin War, as most people like to call that. And we had to leave the country and lived in Nairobi, moved to Nairobi, Kenya, where we lived as refugees for 4 years before we arrived to Canada in 1984. So it's been a life of living from one country to the other, but I've been here living in Ottawa for the last 25 years, and but initially, again, when we arrived as refugees from Kenya, we settled in Regina, Saskatchewan, where we lived for 3 years. Yeah.
And you, psychology therapist, did you choose this field and back in Africa?
No, I was very young, and I just wanted to correct you on that. I am a social worker, as a registered social worker, which I am also registered on psychology today, which I do because of my private practice. But no, as I left Uganda when I was 13, I didn't have any idea that I would be a social worker. It's just life experiences and circumstances that that propelled me to get into this work. I have worked in this field for a very long time, for almost 25 years, like I said. But again, it just came about as part of my experiences observing and looking at the injustices around me. Then I started looking at what I wanted to do. And I also had the person that motivated me to be a social worker was my social worker when I was very young and single with children, and I had to see a social worker. So that is all been part of the package of how I've transitioned to being a social worker. Yeah.
No, we cannot tell that choice that you made because you were just looking for something to do, something to earn your life, right? It was something that you chose to do because you saw some thing happening in life, generally in your environment, that call you that it was a kind of something that you wanted to address and some challenges that you saw. It's not something that you choose like that because you just didn't have to choose something, right? Understand that? Okay, that's good. All right. And now you're living in Ottawa for some times now. Can you describe us a little bit about let's say go through the detail a little bit in your work That means what type of people are you interact with, what type of challenges that they face, and let's say go a little bit into detail about that. What is the category of your I guess the people that you work for? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I work at the Ottawa Rape Crisis Center, and I am a coordinator for the crisis line, the Ottawa Rape Crisis Center crisis line. So I coordinate, I recruit and train volunteers to work on this on the crisis line. The crisis line offers support to survivors of sexual violence, their families, people who support people, to the survivors as well as the community. So our role is basically to provide support, and the challenge is that there is limited number of people who can do that kind of work. The majority of the people that work on the crisis line are students, and most of the time they are eager to be part of the process. However, they also have times when they need to step away from the crisis line because they have either to do their exams, study, or return home after the semester is closed. So those are some of the challenges of maintaining the crisis line, because this is a 24/7 crisis line, 24/7 crisis line. We are supposed to staff it with support. The challenges of some of the people who call the crisis line is that there are limited resources. No matter how much we want to support everyone, we can't, and that is a challenge. There are not a lot of resources in the community to support survivors of sexual violence. There's not enough people to be employed. There's not enough resources to employ people to work permanently on the crisis line. So there are gaps that exist with the services that we provide because of lack of resources. Again, that is just limited to what I do, but the organization has other programs that are also not well funded to support the needs of the survivors of sexual violence. Yeah, yeah.
All right. And Ottawa is a land of different immigrants coming from different part of the world, and very, I say, diverse area with different people. Do that aspect of culture about the origin, the way people were raised back in their country, the type of relation that they have in the family with the parent, the youth, old people, let's say seniors in the family, men and women. I guess it impacts the way you approach, the way you do your job. Can you tell us a little bit about the way you handle that part of the impact of the culture and the different situation and challenges people involved in? How do you, let's say, balance that? Origin, habit, and culture, and the psychological aspect.
Mhm. I think it gives me I am at a better advantage because I come from a different culture, and when I structure my trainings and or interact with clients who are from different backgrounds, I come with intentionally I present myself with a curiosity kind of lens. I just want to know how they what is going on in their lives, because again, sexual violence might be the presenting issue, but there are many other factors that are contributing to the person coming with the health seeking behaviors. I have to take into consideration the health seeking behaviors of people and where they come from. Are they coming because it is a recent sexual assault, and how would they want to address that? Some experiences I can share with you is that most of the clients who might come from different culture, from different countries, have a fear of police. So for me, I have to put that in perspective when I am doing my assessment of the resources that I'm going to offer. I have to ask them whether they are comfortable going to meet with the police to make a police report about the sexual assault. I don't take it for granted that I'm just going to say go to the police and have that issue taken care of, because I also know that people from other communities, even people born in this country, even white people, sometimes struggle with going to make reports to the police. But most importantly, the issue around reporting a sexual assault has to be taken into consideration with put into consideration with other factors, that include cultural understanding of what the police is, the person's experience with police in the past, and the police also in their country. Where do they want to go? What is their voice in this? What has been their experience? Mostly is what I am looking for, and that will determine how I offer support. We normally offer accompaniment, for example, to survivors who want to make police reports. And I have to keep that in mind. When someone calls to ask for that support, I have to keep that in mind. The person might not be able to go to the police station because of their experience. And again, that is part of the cultural piece that comes into play. I come from a place where I have to ask clients what it feels comfortable for them. Sometimes I have to learn from them about how they want the support to look like. Yeah.
Do you give advice to police, for example? I don't know, because I know that for them it's a little bit challenges to interact with people coming from different places in the world, acting maybe a little bit different. Do you have are you involved in some work or relation with the police? Let's say about to know those people more about the education maybe sometimes they need.
We at where I work, we have times when we speak to the police about the needs of the people who come to them. But there are other organizations that take that lead, and like Octiva in the community that works with police and trains them in terms of how to support people who are coming to them from different backgrounds, from different cultures. But again, and it is about supporting the community and with appropriate information. So it's ongoing. There is no, there's not a time when we can say the training is done, so people have the skill set. It is ongoing because some of these values and all these stereotypes we have about people are ingrained in us. So there is not a time frame for us to say that that person has graduated with a cultural competency and therefore they are moving on. No, these are some things that are ongoing, and we have those value assessment checks where we constantly have to check ourselves and find out where we are in relation to the support, the community we serve. Yeah.
And what about the families? I know that there's some country where the notion of authority, let's say the way they raise the children, sometimes it allow, let's say for example, to eat the kids. Sometimes it allow, and people they raise like that, even if they live in Canada. Sometimes they are a little bit. Don't know, they're lacking some tools to when they have to discipline a child, and not to use the violence. It's not something obvious they can do, and sometimes they're in the goodwill. They just do in a good faith. They want to do well, but they don't have the tools that can help them discipline the children without eating him. They're beating him. Do you have a kind of, I don't know, tools or a kind of approach you can tell about that can help some parent maybe watching at us now? Let's remind that we are middle of lockdown. Maybe there are some people at home now. They don't really know what to do with the kids, to discipline the kids. And when the kids cannot go outside and smell the fresh air, you can understand that sometimes it's more challenging when they're inside the house. Can you tell us about some solution that parents can use to deal with the kids, especially when they have to discipline them?
I think discipline is a very complex and challenging issue, and I think we all discipline. Sometimes we've learned behavior. That's how we've learned to discipline our children, and therefore we believe that that's the right thing to do. I think it's ongoing. Again, it's ongoing learning. It does not necessarily put parents as bad parents, and I think for me that is one of the things that I struggle with when people, marginalize other groups of people as bad because they discipline their children in ways that other people, or the perceived way of disciplining children. I wouldn't sit here and I can't sit here and condone violence against children. That's not what it's about. But I think there are resources in the community, like online resources. People can access, information online on how to work with children, especially in these very difficult circumstances. I think there is a lot of information, but again, for the parents to understand that they are doing the best that they can with the resources that they have. That does not make them bad people. It is just that there are other ways of working out situations with their children. Yeah.
But generally speaking, people, they love their children and they just want to do well, but they just sometimes don't know how to do. It's not that it's something like a technique very clear that, every kid is different, different temper.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we don't want to, let's say, to push down that potential that the kids have to develop itself and to empower itself. All right, Josephine, we're gonna have a break now, and people that watching us now, that show that open to you, to your comment. We can chat with you online. We have a chat bar here. You can put some comment, maybe raise some question for our guest, for Josephine. I know that she will be happy to answer. Feel free to do that. We are live now in Facebook, and we are ready. It's your show. All right, let's go for the break. And yes. All right, we're back. We're back here in Patrick Auguste is hosting show. That English version, there's a French version also that Patrick Auguste reçoit. And today is English, and with my guest Josephine Basudde, and we're talking about the work and the community, and sometimes the psychological aspect of it, and the relation between people, between community and the family. Now we're gonna speak about what's happening now. We are lockdown is very challenge for everybody, and now there's a few weeks now we're stuck in our home, and very slow. Let's say things are going very slow, and we cannot almost go out. And Josephine, I guess you're working now, and maybe your counseling line is busy. I hope. I think. And in the middle of that situation, people are locked down in their home. What you can tell about attitude that people can have to overcome this, to live, to make it more, let's say, challenging, and what you can suggest, like, let's say, a general advice about attitude.
I think to come up with the understanding that this is a situation that everybody's experiencing. It's not only them. So everybody's in this. We are all collectively struggling with to make sense of how things are going to move forward, and the new normal is now change, and what does that mean? I think we are all part of this process, which actually is quite grounding, because can you imagine if you are the only person who's experiencing this? So just understanding that everybody is part of this, but also having a routine. I think routines help with grounding and normalizing what might seem abnormal. Just waking up, you're having a ritual around how you do things, waking up in the morning. For some people are working from home. That might mean waking up in the morning, making breakfast as normally as you used to do in the past before this whole situation came about. But also with the social distancing, it has become very, very, it is a challenge, especially for families that have lived for years or for all their lives communally. Like communal living is part of so many people's lives. So just to make sure that you're taking care of yourselves and others, but at the same time reaching out through social media platforms, using the phone to connect with others, and making sure that you're not as isolated as how this situation is actually presenting, because unfortunately there are people out there that are isolated, and reaching out to them, dropping off food maybe even at the door, and meeting people where we are at, but at a distance. But I think that those are some of the things that I would suggest. I think having a routine is key in maintaining good mental health. Yeah.
Sure. Have you noticed a raise of the call that you receive in the counseling line of it, like there's some change here, a different, yeah.
Our lines have had some calls where people are concerned about the lack of support, because in our center we have the crisis line is the entry point for services in the community. Or in the center. So what happens is that once people assessed on the crisis line, they offered resources to come into the center to get long-term face-to-face counseling. So right now the center is closed, and what's happening is that people are now at home. Those who used to come in the center are now required to call in and speak to their counselors over the phone, which is not what most people want, how people want to access services. Some people just want counseling face to face. So that is a challenge. And like, hopefully it is not it is just time limited, and it's not something that is going to go on for a long time. But we've had a couple of concerns on the crisis line regarding lack of that face-to-face counseling, but also a lack of going out to meet with their counselors, because again, like, I would like to emphasize, a lot of people are isolated, even before COVID. So seeing their clients, seeing their counselors was a part of them connecting with somebody. So that is posing a challenge. If that your counselor was one of the only few people that you could meet, that has been shut down, that is creating more problems. But again, the crisis line is open 24/7, and people can access it and talk to somebody there. But again, with the understanding that this is hopefully something that is going to end soon. Yeah.
Can you give us, while we're talking about that, some contact information, and maybe after the show we're gonna put some I don't know, information. You can put that in there with the show, and you can actually give some numbers or email. People can reach you, and people can find some kind of service.
Yes, yeah, for sure. The crisis line number is 613-562-2333, and it is staffed with trained volunteers to support anybody who calls the crisis line. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Talking about the meeting interview, the meeting, let's say, to solve, you just told about that meeting aspect. Can it be done a little bit through the web, like with some tools that we have now? Let's say there was one we're using now for this interview. Can you try to use that in your work also, or no?
Yes,
I know that it's not exactly the same thing that actually meet a person in person, right? But maybe it can help and give a kind of plan B. What do you think?
so the meeting is, are you talking about the counseling on the online, over the clients are receiving counseling over the phone, and sometimes through Zoom or WebEx. So they can that can be set up by the counselors, and they can choose to do that. But again, there are some issues that could impact how the client works, because some there are issues around confidentiality. So people might not want to be discussing personal information of that nature over the phone. So there are some things that need to be worked out. But yeah, there is a possibility of doing counseling over the phone. There's possibility of people have been doing it for years, Zoom and other technologies that are available. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, there's another aspect talking about new immigrants, people coming from the South generally. What I noticed, and I think I had some kind of experience like that when I was a kid, just came in Canada a long time ago now. It like people that are not used to that type of services about, let's say, social worker or psychological aspect. And sometimes people are afraid or ashamed about, let's say, they feel weak, but they don't want to share that problem with other people. And sometimes they think that uh, uh, people gonna knows about what they're experiencing, what they're challenging in. They feel a bit like very weak. They don't wanna expose that to other people. Do you notice? I guess you're aware of that, and you saw that in your practice. How come you try to overcome that and to make people feel confident about, let's say, open to you and say that they have a kind of confidence that that it's gonna be a solution for them?
Mhm. I think that's an very good question. What when I started this work, I also had a kind of, I was a little bit surprised that I was in this work because socially, I was socialized that you don't go and talk about your problems, your business to other people.
Let me tell you about the work. Sometimes people say that in, let's say, in your work, or let's say you apply for work. If you, let's say, the employer notice that you have kind of weakness, he won't hire you. That means, that aspect also. It
Mhm.
can be, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so we have, I will speak for myself, but I also know that other people who have come to me from other cultures have said, well, how come you went into this line of work? Because we don't talk about our business to public. We keep our problems private, and we go to our grandmother or aunties and talk about these our issues, which is fine if the system is set up for that. But unfortunately, we don't have aunties or uncles, and if we do, they're very busy, because in this country everybody is very busy. There is not a lot of time for people to sit down anymore and chat about their problems. And this becomes a barrier to accessing service. So I think awareness, opening up a train, opening ourselves up to understanding that we are not supporting ourselves by keeping issues within ourselves. We have to talk to other people, and for us, I think it's about creating safety. We also come from communities where we have experienced a lot of oppression. So it is important for us to also not look at our communities and say, oh, well, they don't come to this mainstream services, they don't come and get support. It is also for us, as you asked earlier, what you have to have and integrate that cultural piece and understanding that our communities have experienced issues that sometimes make it impossible for them to trust other people. Um, and in order for someone to open up, to come to me and say, hey, I am experiencing such and such an issue, they have to earn my trust. They can't. I just can't assume that they will readily trust me because here I am. I'm here to to support you. That is not how it works. Yeah. So it is about awareness, creating that awareness that we all need someone to talk to at some point, and we will need someone to talk to at some point, because it is good for our mental health. It is
Yeah.
good for our mental health to talk about issues that are impacting us, especially
Okay.
at this point in our lives right now. Yeah.
Yeah. As far as I know, that's the biggest challenge for men than for women. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Let's talk about now. It will be a kind of test for you, but I don't know. But yeah, relax. Let's try to imagine the world from now. Let's
Mhm.
say by the end of the year. Let's say maybe sooner, summer. How do you think that people gonna be? Let's say that we try a little the lockdown to stop. I got an idea. What I can tell you is, for example, I don't see any plane in the sky. I don't almost see any noise. And it look the hair has been, let's say you have that virus, that challenging also. But the got a kind of feeling the hair is more fresh than it used to be a few weeks ago. Less cars running around. Uh, can you describe a little bit the word that you would, I don't know. I know that you're not an easy question, but we are playing. Go ahead.
So it is right now. It is from what I see, it is heightened anxiety, heightened stress, heightened frustration, isolation. So what do I see? How we transition from this place to that, to a place that I see with no more lockdown. I think a little bit of hesitancy in how we are now, what our new normal is going to look like. There's going to be some hesitation. For example, I think people are going to be more mindful about how they spend money. I think this whole situation has showed us that if you need to take care of that piece, that financial piece. Unfortunately, for some people, that might mean, might mean to secure a job. I mean, fortunately for some people, not, but to secure employment. But again, what does that look like? I don't know. Like, that's a very difficult question, Patrick.
Yeah, I know, difficult for me also, but I wanted to challenge you.
I think it's going to require people to use their resources very wisely. I was going to travel to Uganda the day the airports, the prime minister called everybody back home. I was supposed to be traveling to Uganda. So I do not intend to travel for a very long time because I am not sure what that is going to look like. So for me, I am a little bit hesitant, but I also think there will be a lot of celebration because people will be out there and doing a lot of things, that meeting with people and understanding community more. I think what we used to take for granted in terms of our relationships, maybe this is going to make them a bit more stronger. I think we just need to look at it through with an optimistic lens. Like, things are going to go for the better. We're going to have a virus, and I mean, we're going to have a virus, but we might have a vaccine. So, but how do we take care of ourselves? But again, for me, I work with mental health, So I promote good mental health. So I hope that for us, we continue to look at ways of how to take care of ourselves better, so that we have good mental health, regardless of what comes. Yeah.
Thank you. You dealt very well with this question. I know it wasn't an easy one, and I would add about all that you said. Maybe that it linked with that. Maybe people are they will have more wisdom in the world, I think. All right, I can say that your information, Pasi, in the bottom of the screen now. People can write it down. And what I have is just to thank you very much about being with us in the show today, and sure that it was exciting, helpful, useful, and congratulations for what you're doing in the community as a social worker, and know that you're doing a very important job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today, and that's how we do that. And don't forget to leave some comment and for us in this Patrick Auguste is hosting show. And BIA Media, thanks to our producer, BIA Media.